I love Jason. I disagree firmly because I think we've lost our minds. And I'll say it to him to his face, and I've told him on the phone, and I'll tell him on the air again. I don't want to step in it, but I firmly disagree with Jason last week. I'm like, you want him cut. Why do you want him cut? You want him cut because you're tired of seeing people say nasty things to you on the internet? Do you want him cut because it's hard to cover him? Do you want him cut because when you say you don't think he's a good quarterback, he's got a big fan base and they go after you for it? Is that why you want him cut? Because wanting a guy cut from a team is a very strong thing to say.
Ken Carmen is going absolutely all out on Jason Lloyd, and this situation has turned into one of the most heated debates in Cleveland sports media right now. Carmen is not holding anything back when it comes to Lloyd's recent remarks about Shedeur Sanders, specifically his comments asking the Browns to get him cut. This isn't just a casual disagreement between two media personalities. This is a full-blown confrontation that has the entire Browns fan base talking. Ken Carmen made it abundantly clear that Jason Lloyd made a great mistake here. Why? Because asking a team to cut someone is an incredibly strong statement. It's not something you just casually throw out there during a radio show or in a column. When you're calling for a player to be removed from the roster, you're essentially saying that this player has no value to the organization whatsoever. Carmen declared emphatically that he does not like what Jason Lloyd is doing, and you could hear the frustration and disappointment in his voice as he broke down exactly why Lloyd's approach is so problematic.
Like some of the stuff I read over the weekend, I thought it was insane. Insane. I told you guys a million times over.
The Jason Lloyd drama is now escalating rapidly as he's getting exposed by fellow media members, fans, and analysts alike. But let's rewind and look at where this all started, because it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It all began with one statement from Jason Lloyd that Shedeur Sanders is not the answer at the quarterback spot for the Cleveland Browns. Lloyd wasn't just skeptical or cautiously optimistic. He was adamant, absolutely convinced that Shedeur Sanders cannot succeed with the Browns. And the way he delivered this message, the hatred for Shedeur was visible in whatever he said. It wasn't constructive criticism. It wasn't fair analysis. It felt personal, and Browns fans picked up on that immediately.
He doesn't make tight window throws. He doesn't throw guys open. This is not the answer.
Here's where things get really interesting. Even though it was mid-season and Shedeur Sanders didn't perform particularly well in one game, Jason Lloyd jumped on that opportunity to make his statement about Shedeur not being the guy. He used that one subpar performance as validation for his pre-existing opinion. But then something happened that Lloyd probably wasn't expecting. Shedeur Sanders went out and dropped an absolute masterclass performance. He silenced the critics, played phenomenal football, and showed exactly why so many people believed in his potential. Jason Lloyd had to eat his words back, and for a media personality who had been so adamant in his criticism, that had to sting. You would think that after being proven wrong so decisively, Lloyd might reconsider his approach, or at least acknowledge that maybe he was too harsh in his initial assessment. But that's not what happened. As the season came to an end, Jason Lloyd yet again started talking negative about Shedeur Sanders. And here's the crucial part that Ken Carmen and many others have pointed out. This wasn't because of Shedeur's play. Shedeur has actually done decent in the opportunities he got this season. He showed growth, resilience, and the ability to compete at a high level. The statistics backed him up, and most objective observers could see that he was developing into a legitimate NFL quarterback. So if it wasn't about the play, what was Lloyd criticizing? He started calling Shedeur out for his position throws and even his posture. Think about that for a second. We're talking about analyzing a quarterback's posture now. Lloyd was nitpicking every single aspect of Shedeur's game, looking for anything he could find to justify his predetermined conclusion that Sanders wasn't the answer. It went from legitimate football analysis to what many viewed as a personal vendetta against a young quarterback who was just trying to establish himself in the league.
He still doesn't know what he's looking at. He still doesn't flip protections. He doesn't know when he's hot. This isn't me saying this. I'm not an NFL. I've never claimed to be an NFL coach. This is people in that building will tell me he still doesn't know how to flip protections. He doesn't know when he's hot. He doesn't know what he's looking at.
The whole fan base has absolutely come after Jason Lloyd for calling Shedeur out in this manner. Social media has been brutal. Fans have been relentless in their criticism of Lloyd's approach, his bias, and what they perceive as an unfair targeting of a player who has done nothing to deserve this level of scrutiny and negativity. Browns fans are passionate, and when they feel like one of their players is being treated unfairly, they make their voices heard loud and clear. Ken Carmen has been paying attention to all of this, and he's come to some pretty significant conclusions about what's really driving Jason Lloyd's behavior. Carmen declared that Jason Lloyd made this statement about cutting Shedeur because the Shedeur Sanders fan base goes off on Lloyd whenever he says something negative about their quarterback. It's become a cycle. Lloyd says something critical, Shedeur's supporters push back hard, and then Lloyd doubles down and says something even more extreme. Carmen also acknowledged that Lloyd also personally does not like Shedeur, which adds another layer to this entire situation.
I love Jason. I disagree firmly because I think we've lost our minds.
But here's where Ken Carmen really drove his point home. And this is the heart of his argument against Jason Lloyd. Just because Lloyd doesn't personally like Shedeur Sanders, and just because he gets pushback from Shedeur's fan base, that cannot mean that Jason can call on the Browns to get rid of Shedeur. Why? Because as Carmen so perfectly put it, it is not Jason Lloyd's Browns. These are the fans' Browns. This is Cleveland's team. Lloyd is a media member who covers the team, but he doesn't own it, he doesn't run it, and he doesn't get to make personnel decisions or demand that certain players be removed from the roster. Ken Carmen made it crystal clear what the only legitimate reason would be to cut Shedeur Sanders from the team. The only justifiable reason would be if Shedeur was a bad teammate. If he was causing problems in the locker room, if he was disrupting team chemistry, if he was being selfish or creating division among the players, then yes, that would be a valid reason to consider moving on from him. But here's the thing that everyone who knows anything about Shedeur Sanders understands. He would never be that kind of player. By all accounts, Shedeur is a consummate professional, a hard worker, a team player, and someone who his teammates respect and rally around.
You don't do anything for that. If you want him cut from the team, it should be because he's a detriment to the actual team. Now, I don't know all the story. Maybe we'll find out that he's a terrible teammate. I don't think we will. But if you found out a guy was a terrible teammate and not that good, that's a reason to cut the guy. Just because we're bickering amongst each other about a quarterback doesn't mean the guy should be cut.
So if Shedeur isn't a bad teammate, if he's been performing decently when given opportunities, if he's shown the potential to develop into a quality NFL quarterback, then why would the Browns cut him? More importantly, why is Jason Lloyd asking the Browns to do that? What's the actual justification beyond Lloyd's personal feelings and his frustration with Shedeur's fan base? Carmen is essentially calling out Lloyd for letting his emotions and personal biases dictate what should be objective football analysis. Ken Carmen has declared in no uncertain terms that Jason Lloyd said a terrible thing. This isn't just a difference of opinion about a player's ability or potential. This is Carmen saying that Lloyd crossed a line, that he went too far, and that his comments were inappropriate and unprofessional. When a respected media personality like Ken Carmen calls out a colleague this directly and this forcefully, it means something. It means that Lloyd's behavior has become so egregious that it can't just be ignored or dismissed as normal sports debate. And Carmen didn't stop there. He went even further and declared that Jason Lloyd has lost his mind because he hates Shedeur Sanders so much. Think about the weight of that statement. Carmen is essentially saying that Lloyd's judgment has been so compromised by his personal feelings toward Shedeur that he's no longer capable of being rational or objective about this situation. He's let his dislike of the player and his frustration with the player's supporters drive him to make statements that don't make football sense, don't serve the fans, and don't contribute anything positive to the discourse around the Cleveland Browns.
And I'll say it to him to his face, and I've told him on the phone, and I'll tell him on the air again.
This entire situation raises important questions about the role of media members who cover sports teams. What's the line between criticism and targeting? When does analysis become a personal attack? How much should a media personality's personal feelings influence their professional opinions? And what responsibility do they have to the fans and to the players they're covering? Ken Carmen is arguing that Jason Lloyd has failed on all of these fronts, that he's allowed his personal biases to override his professional obligations, and that his call for the Browns to cut Shedeur Sanders is the clearest evidence of how far he's strayed from legitimate sports journalism. The Browns fan base is watching this unfold with great interest because it speaks to larger issues about how their team is covered, how their players are treated, and who gets to have a voice in the conversation about the team's future. They've made it clear where they stand, and they're backing Ken Carmen's perspective that Jason Lloyd has gone too far and needs to be called out for it.